For this project, you need 3 items. You need a piece of white paper. You need a selection of crayons, whichever colors you like, and you need a black marker. Okay, so before we get started though, I want to talk to you a little bit about coloring. Now you are kindergartners. You know everything there is to know about coloring by now, but I want to talk to you about coloring in the lines and when it's okay to not color in the lines. So if I take my marker and I draw a square, I have made lines. And we know about lines from Larry, right? And if I want to ask you to color that, you have some options. You can pick up one color, like I did with this orange, and you can just color on it. Whoops, this orange broke. Now, that coloring isn't bad. That's not bad coloring, but it isn't coloring inside the lines. Coloring inside the lines isn't something you have to do all the time, but it is a skill. And a skill is something that we learn how to do so that when we need to do it, we can. This is perfectly fine if that's what you're going for, but we don't want to be a person who doesn't know how to do anything but this. So we're going to learn about coloring inside the lines. And I have a couple of little tricks where I take my crayon and just color right inside the lines. And then when I color back and forth like this, it makes it a little bit easier to stay in the lines. And another thing that you will notice that I do a lot when I color, and I want to stay in the lines, is I try to color in one direction. See how my crayon is going diagonal all the time, just like Larry the Lion Channel? That can be really helpful to making sure your crayon looks neat and stays in the line. Now remember, I'm not saying you always have to stay in the line. Sometimes doing all this is fun, and it's exactly what we want to do. But sometimes, like today, we're trying to learn a skill. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started on making our line picture. I'm going to have you start by writing your name. That's always a good idea to start with writing your name. I'm also going to ask you to write your name with a crayon instead of writing it with the marker. We always want to try to remember to write our name with a crayon or a pencil instead of a marker or paint. Okay? Now, if you don't know how to write your name yet, you can just wait until you have a mom or a dad or a grandma or a babysitter or brother or sister who can help you. But I'm going to go ahead and write my name, and I'm using a crayon, and I am writing my name, which is Ms. Shapley. And then I'm going to turn my paper over so that my name is on the back. You're going to see that I have my paper up and down and not side to side. So I have the short side at the top so it's tall. If you don't do it that way, that's totally fine. You pick whichever way you want to do it. So I'm going to have you start with your black marker. Okay? Now, don't forget to put the marker lid on the end of the marker so that you don't lose it, because markers with no lids get really, really thirsty and start drinking their own ink. So I'm going to have you start with the lines that Larry taught us how to make. So the first one I want to have you make is a horizontal line. And a horizontal line just goes straight across the paper.
The word horizontal comes from the word horizon. Horizon means where the edge of the earth or land and the sky appear to meet.
So go ahead and take a second to make your horizontal line. If it doesn't look exactly like mine, that's okay. We're just practicing today. Okay, now I would like for you to try to make an angled line, or sometimes we call it a zigzag line. Doesn't have to look just like mine. but give that a try. Very good. Now I'm going to have you do a diagonal line. Now remember, a diagonal line is like a horizontal line, but it is tilted. So you'll see my arm. Here's horizontal, but tilting it makes it diagonal. So let's give that a shot. We can either diagonal this way or we can diagonal that way. Your pick. I'm going to choose to go like this. Okay, very good. You give it a try. All right, now let's try at the bottom of my paper here a curvy line. Now, curvy line is a little bit like an angled line, but instead of pointy bits, we'll get softer rounded bits. And you see how all the lines that I've been making have gone from one edge of the paper to the other edge of the paper. You see if you can do a curvy line. Great job. All right, now the last one is a little bit harder, and you can find anywhere on your paper that you would like to do this one. But we're going to do a spiral. And if you want to, you can watch this and then rewind it just a little bit, or to watch it again. Or I will make another one on another paper just to show you how to do it again. But you're going to put your marker down on the paper, just like we talked about just making a dot, and we take our dot for a walk. So put your marker down on the paper, and then you start to make a circle. But instead of ending the circle where we started, we keep on going around it and around it. And that's how we make a spiral. Now, it is okay if a spiral doesn't work for you today. Totally okay. If that doesn't work for you, and you practice it and it feels kind of wrong, you can just instead make a circle. You decide whichever you want to do. But you can keep practicing on spirals. I'm going to show you on the back of this paper that I worked on earlier. And I'm going to show you again how to make a spiral. You put your marker down in the middle, like the dot that we took for a walk, and then you go ahead and take it for a walk. But instead of coming right back home, you keep going, and you keep on going, and you go to the outside of the line you just drew. And you can stop your spiral whenever you like. Go ahead and give a spiral a and if it doesn't work for you, you can just make a circle. We'll keep on working. Now I want to show you a little trick. You might have noticed that I didn't do a vertical line, and Larry did. So remember we talked about the horizontal line and how it was straight across? Vertical is exactly the opposite of that. Vertical is when it goes straight up and down instead of side to side. So if I were to turn my paper this way, do you see how my horizontal line is now a vertical line? Pretty good, huh? We have a horizontal line and a vertical line on our paper, but we only drew one line. It just depends on how we turn the paper. Now if you want to draw another line somewhere on your paper that is a vertical line, you can go right ahead and do that. All right, we're going to put the marker away and get out our crayons now. I'm going to go ahead and start my coloring. So I can choose any colors that I want. Think back to the last time you were here and you talked about color. You can choose your primary colors, your reds, your yellow. I think I have a blue here, a blue, yes. Or you can mix them up, you decide. But what I'm going to ask you to do is remember what we learned about coloring in the lines, that we're learning a new skill, and we're going to practice it even though it's kind of hard. And I'm going to ask you to color in between your lines. So you can go ahead and take your crayon, and remember what I taught you, that if you color a little bit close to the line, starting out, kind of outlining it, sometimes coloring in the lines is a little bit easier. There we go. Now remember, the other tip that I taught you is to try to color in one direction. Instead of moving your crayon, I chose to start coloring diagonally, and I'm going to stick to it. Now sometimes when you get into little areas you have to switch. But we want to kind of stick to it. And then when you're done, you can go back in and fill in little areas that you feel like have some extra white in them. Now this is just the way I color. You can do your own style of coloring, but these are some tricks and tips that, as an art teacher who's been coloring for a very long time, that I have learned help make coloring work for me. And I'm going to go ahead and finish all of the other areas by choosing a different color and coloring in between all the others. And I'm going to stop the video here and come back when I'm done, and I want you to do the same. You go ahead and just pause the video and keep on coloring and come back when you've filled it all in. Can't wait to see you. Have fun coloring. Okay, so here is mine that is finished, and I can't wait to see yours that's all finished. This has been a really fun way for us to learn how to make these lines that Larry taught us. So we've got a vertical, which can also be a horizontal. We have an angled line. We have a diagonal line. We have a curvy line, and we have a spiral line. And if you were still working on spiral line, we also just have a circle line, which is the beginning of that. And I think you did really great, and I can't wait to see more of what you can do. We'll see you next time.